Welcome to the Creative Island Podcast,
a show aimed at helping creative individuals transform their passion into profession.
Each episode will share powerful strategies, tips, and practical tools to empower you to create the income, the lifestyle, and the legacy you were designed for.
We are your hosts, Adam Bowman
and Jason Pepper.
Enjoy the show. Creative Island, episode number 10. Thank you for joining us here on a sunny day. As you can see behind me, we're outside today. No, we're not actually outside. Jason, how are you doing today, brother? It's been a minute.
It always is sunny when we're doing these episodes.
It's always sunny in Philadelphia, brother.
I guess we're in the wrong city.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be in Philly, that's for sure, dude. But, we're 10 episodes in. What the hell are we talking about today?
Man, got some cool stuff on the queue. We got a little bit of requests of people wanting to hear specific things. So today we're just going to go through a little bit about power teams.
Shout out for your request if you requested power teams. This one's for you. Dial in, sit back, get the popcorn. If you're driving, put her in cruise control and just dial into this one.
Yeah, I want to try. Yeah, hopefully we can kind of, give you guys some nuggets here today that'll just maybe challenge your thinking around certain things or certain ideas around your music or your art as a business. Because what a business really means is just like a collection of people all kind of with a similar objective, right? Mm-hmm. All working together towards a similar objective. And so we'll go through power teams.
And when you mean similar objective, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like financially? Do you mean in terms of like their goal is the same in terms of like their art or whatever profession they're in? Or like what does that sort of look like?
Yeah, it's not always monetary, but basically a power team or like a common objective is just like you're creating a win-win situation for a bunch of different people to do a bunch of different stuff. And sort of complementary stuff to what you're doing.
Okay, yeah.
So like, sense. I'll go through it. I'll tell a story to kind of get people on a level, because I want people to kind of understand this from a different industry, and then we'll bring it back to art and the creative world and how there's so much overlap and how it functions.
It's all transferable, right? We've said that on many podcasts. Like, you can it transcends everything when you're in the right sectors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't know why people have this thing about show business like it's some totally different business than other businesses. Mm-hmm. It's not. Like, pull the curtain back. Yeah, all the same mechanisms exist. And there are differences, but all the mechanisms are the same.
Yeah, and I think it's like, before we get into it, I think it's like the reason people think differently about it, because when I got into it, I had it on like a pedestal because like there's an ego associated with it. You sort of, when you're doing podcasts or you're doing social media takes, you sort of lift this veil on yourself and you think that like this is different from like carpentry, but in the same thing, it's like carpentry is a fucking art form in itself. You're just not on social media being like, hey, I'm doing a podcast. Hey, I just released a single for my new EP or whatever. So I think people come out a different way, but at the same time, to your point, you can apply the same mechanisms in place.
Yeah, actually a really crazy statistic that might kind of shock people. 90% of businesses fail before their third birthday. 90%. And then something like 99.999% of music businesses fail before their third birthday. But it's because music and artists are just bad business people. Yeah. Like businesses that fail have more to do with the bad business owners than they do with the business itself.
100%.
And most musicians and artists are just bad business people, right?
But then the saddest part about that is like people think that's a reflection of their voice as an artist or their vision, but it's just a reflection that they haven't been business minded. Like I had to shift 2 years ago to think, my 2000 Studios' third birthday is coming up, so I'm on the cusp to see what we're doing. But like I thought once like it was tanking after COVID because like it kind of dipped with this looming recession. I thought it was because of my artistic integrity, but then I just learned like, no, I need to get more leads. I need to go into it more. But let's get into power teams, brother.
Yeah, let's get into it this stuff. Let's get into it. So I'll start with a story because this story is really relevant to what we're talking about. So I go to a golf tournament. I've been invited to this golf tournament for a few years in a row now, and it's with a group of people that I've been associated with, and they're all real estate guys.
Okay. Oh, God.
So totally different industry, but it's all relevant. So all these guys are real estate dudes. Some of them have big portfolios of properties. Some of them not as big, but they're kind of getting there. Some of them are home flippers. And my mentor, Corey McKinnon, shout out to Corey McKinnon, he put this golf tournament together with all these industry people that he does business with all the time, or they're his students, or they're, and essentially he said something. He stood up and spoke at this golf tournament, and he said, guys, everybody in the room here today, look around the room. Everybody in the room, there's enough money and enough business to do with these people. You'll make all the money that you ever need to make for the rest of your life. And it was like a big moment, and everyone kind of looked around the room, and it was like, oh shit, there are renovators here. There are lenders. There are wholesalers. There are and there was a whole a la carte menu of different professionals that are trustworthy in doing business, and and they all want to stay in their lane and do the thing that they love.
Totally, yeah.
And so I thought that was so cool. And then so what I realized is from industry to industry, and you can start to see this pattern, is that there are power teams in every company. A company is essentially a power team. And a power team is essentially a group of people all with a certain specialization or specialty, staying in their lane, doing what they love, and collectively it just moves everybody forward.
Yeah.
So obviously. And so I thought, well, a record label is just a big power team.
100%.
They already have pre-established channels with, the financing people, the promoters, the tour managers, their project managers that they call managers that just, they go in and work with their signed acts or whatever. They're just pre-established power teams. You go to a production company, like for film, they're pre-established. Some guy put together a bunch of relationships with a bunch of different professionals in a bunch of different disciplines, videographers, film people, audio people.
And marketing, the whole nine.
Exactly. And then they just have a whole company that they're, so they take their value or whatever on top. But as an independent artist, you don't need a record label. You don't need a production team. You don't need that around you. What you just need is to be resourceful and build your own little power team.
Yeah.
And you can make a great living. You can make a sustainable living by having really strategic relationships with people you already know. They're already in your circle now. They can already help you, but you just have to be resourceful in finding that. So if I said something, I'm going to say something right now that might be controversial, but there is enough people in your network right now to make the income that you want this year.
Boom.
There is. But you have to be resourceful in how you put it together. And everybody wants a win-win, right? If you're a film guy and say you wanted to work with me, you have a certain price point that you'd be willing to work for. And there are some other metrics you'd work for publicity or you'd work for other things. Maybe if it's not full compensation, there's something else that's making the compensation worthwhile for you. If you create that, you'll always have people that will want to, come with you on a little journey on a 100%. Project or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I realized to that point, the past, last week I shot this 2-day event that was for independent country artists, and I sort of shout out Andrea again for hiring me to do I did a mini doc on them. So I interviewed 14 people in the span of 2 days, which from the independent artists to Andrea who put it on as a radio tracker, and then all these radio hosts from across the country, and these are all independent country artists, no labels associated. And what we realized in this bubble that we were put in is to the point what you're saying, we got videographer, we got marketing from a radio standpoint, and all these artists are if this is here and this is the price point that I paid to come here, this is all I need to get the exposure to be on the charts, to get on Spotify, to get that boost. And they don't need that label backing of just becoming an industry plant or whatever and be getting manipulated. They can own their own IP and everything that comes along with that. And I think it gives artists more power once they utilize how to manipulate that system like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you're signed to a record label, you give all your power away. They've already put the power teams together. Yeah. And then so they hold the power.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything without them because you don't have those strategic relationships. But as an independent artist, you can and should have them.
Yeah. And the thing is working with other independent artists, the monetary value is not the only thing that's the big takeaway. Because when you work for a label, it's mainly how much money can I itemize from you in a period from a quarterly to yearly to long term. But when you work with an independent, they computate they take into vanity metrics and into account and everything that comes along with it that can boost their system and their business at the same time. Yeah. So it becomes more reciprocal than relying on a big dog like Universal Music Group or whatever,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the point of the whole story is like you can create those channels.
Yeah.
You've got the resources, you've got the connections. And if you have good connections, but you need better connections, go find them. Like you have the power to do that.
Well, yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Like there's networking events every day of every week of every year. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're struggling to find a network and you're reflecting now on like, who can I use to get to the next level, and you don't have that person up in mind, go on Google or go on Facebook and look up community groups and see if they have events, like bi-weekly events or whatever. And then you can manipulate that to your benefit as well, and just find someone that fits your niche and can propel you forward.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You've got to be the CEO of your little business.
Yeah.
And like, whether you like it or not, the business side is more about, the business side will determine your success more than the creative side. Your understanding of your business and your ability to build demand for your supply will ultimately be the divider between success and failure, which is crazy. And it's not something everybody wants to hear, but it's like, Taylor Swift is not Taylor Swift because, she writes great songs, but guess what, guys? There's rooms of writers that do a lot of stuff for her too.
Yeah, if you look on the producer list of one of her hit songs, it's like 50
It's
deep.
crazy,
It's
right?
crazy, yeah.
But that's not why she is where she is.
No.
She is where she is because her tours are some of the biggest grossing tours in the world, meaning she's working like a dog every year, and like the results speak for themselves,
Yeah,
right?
100%. So when people and independent artists in any sector are looking to start their power team, say they're like, they release an EP, they have like a single out that they're really confident in, but they can't get eyeballs on it. They don't know how to network. Where should they start? Where should they look to first? And like incorporating, like the first step of incorporating someone into their business.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I want to cover one thing because I don't want to gloss it over because it's an important point. It's like, well, how do I afford to pay people to join my power team?
Great point.
Because compensation's the thing that's going to stick, right? Like if you can't compensate people accordingly, then you're not going to have a team that's going to want to work for you.
Totally.
So compensation, people, like I remember when I started hiring my first, like the first time I ever had a business where I actually had to hire somebody else. We talked about this before the show. I didn't hire them for 40 hours a week, and signed this huge commitment to pay this person forever. It was a single mom that had a 2-day window.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like 6 hours a day for 2 days a week. And that was enough at the time. And it was like the compensation wasn't daunting and it didn't drain my business of cash, but it was really helpful and it gave me an opportunity to get away and do more important stuff while she was doing the things that were important to her. It was awesome. So, when you're an artist, you can't bring a full-time video guy on payroll. You can't bring a full-time producer on payroll. You can't, it's more of a per project basis.
Yeah.
But that's great because then when you pay people to give you a product that's something that you want, you incentivize that end goal, and it's all relative to the project. So you're not committing to like a huge salary. Yeah,
because then once you commit that deep and it starts to not work at some degree, you think the system's flawed or something. But if you start incrementally and you're like, oh, okay, this works, and you start ramping it up slowly or slower and hire a couple more people after that, then it works. Whereas like throwing 100% at the wall immediately is just like too daunting.
Yeah, you'll just like sink the ship. It's not going to work. But like people already have power teams now. They just don't even know it. Like when you do your taxes every year, what do? You go find an accountant.
Shout out Akash, my boy Akash does my taxes.
Yeah, man. So like, you don't keep it. He's not on your payroll.
No,
he's not. But he's a super critical part of your business because he helps do all your taxes and your finance stuff once a year or whatever, twice a year or quarterly.
My taxes are already done for 2020, like 2022. I'm like, that's never happened before. So he's like on it, and it's like to your point though. It's something that I don't have to think about. Like I would get emails from the CRA because there was like 2.5 years where I didn't file because I didn't know how to do corporate taxes. But once that weight was lifted off and I was like, I have some smart ass dude worrying about that shit for me, I could just focus on bringing in more money, as much money as I could, and having it go out on buying equipment for the business or whatever. And it already boosted me up so much from just like that stepping stone. And then I get to tell people I have an accountant and it sounds fucking cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but that's, so you got a power team already, right?
Yeah.
So like we all wear way too many hats.
Yeah.
When you start a any entrepreneurial venture, whether you're an artist or a business owner or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to wear all the hats at first, but then you're going to find people to start delegating those hats off to until you're only wearing one or two hats and they're the highest income producing stuff, or you delegate that stuff to somebody. And that's all a power team is. It's complementary pairing of skills, videographers. Like I've got a list here, but photos and videos are good. Writers, producers, a manager. You don't have to pay a manager full time. It's eat what you kill. It's commish, man. It's awesome. So like you want a manager for one album to help you get it, just pedal an album out to a thing. It's like, it's 15-20% compensation for that project. That's it. There's no, you don't have to, you're not on the hook to pay this guy a salary.
Yeah.
It's all relative to what he produces from the project, So, an entertainment lawyer is another good one, accountant, promoter, tour manager, vehicle rental, transportation people. You want to have all these people on lock. You want to have some reasonable relationship with them. So when you call, or some wholesale pricing or something, so when you call them and you got a project to just take on, it's all there.
The vehicles are there and you just hop in and take this. You're not even in the driver's seat anymore. People are guiding you along.
They're all doing it for you. You're just like, great, I'm going to hire this vehicle company. They're going to make sure the van's there. They're going to make sure that like all the equipment I need is there. I got to the tour promoters, like the shows are there. Everything's queued up. Whatever it is, you just want to have all those channels built for you because it's your business, and like those are all necessary functions of the business. If you're doing all of them, you're going to run out of gas.
Yeah. And I think another really key component of that is like building the trust within that power team. Because I think I know for me, I can relate to this. When you have a product, whether it's like a song, a film, whatever, it's like that's your child, that's your baby. You worked on this thing for however many years and put everything into it. To bring someone on is a big step, and like you have to build that trust with someone. So I think starting smaller again is a great option, because then you see how trust is developed within that relationship, even if they're not necessarily connected to the product, like they didn't help you make it or whatever. But I think having those vehicles in place to propel you forward, it starts with trust. And once you can start with that smaller, with like say one person, you can start to build up to 5-10 people, and then you can build the trust systematically throughout that. And then you don't have to worry about watching your back or hiding your IP, because it's already just pre-established in whatever system you create.
Yeah, and it's all relative to the size of your business too, right? Like you kind of gotta walk before you can run. To some degree, or crawl if you're there. But it's all relative. So. But it's so important, and then like merch suppliers, and like your suppliers are your friends. Like, this is something I learned way later on. Like I know a lot of businesses in, a different industry that they just shrug off their suppliers. Like they use them and they use their products, but they're just like, they're just like, okay, great. Like, there's no small talk. There's not much of a relationship. It's just like, I buy your product at this price, perfect. Make sure this quantity is here at this day, or I'm going to pick up at this day. But then you don't realize your suppliers are like a gatekeeper into great connections. Your suppliers are your friends.
Totally.
If you're renting vans and audio equipment and stuff from a company, or or a tour promoter, you don't think that promoter has other bands that might be beneficial to know who their managers are, and you might get some cross-pollination or connections. Or in the film world, you're renting gear from a facility, connect you with another company that's renting that you maybe want to work with. Or
100%. Happens all the time.
Some of the best referrals come from my suppliers. Like literally, they're just like, oh man, you got to know, like you got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd love to meet that guy.
And that person's like, here's 10 other people you can meet, and it compounds.
Yeah. So there's so many benefits there. But yeah, who's in your power team? Like it's a good exercise to sit down, look at your business objectively, like a business owner, not an artist, and just look behind the curtain and see, like, do you have all those metrics there, or all those mechanisms there? Yeah. Are you calling, are you booking the vans? Are you doing all those things? Are you like, dealing with do you have good companies that want to do all that stuff for you?
Another thing that I'm realizing now that you talk about this is I totally have power teams and I didn't even realize it.
Totally.
Because like when you talk about rentals, or the people that's like the suppliers, Like my buddy that I did one of my first mentors I got out of co-op student for film school. Like he shoots a lot of like he's a cinematographer, but he owns a lot of gear. Shout out Revolt Camera. Like one time I was shooting my thesis project for Humber, and I had rented the wrong lenses. So like the mount didn't fit on the back of the camera, and I was like, oh fuck, like this is bad. So then I hit him up. I was like, yo, like I fucked up. Like I got the wrong back. Like I got the wrong mount. And he's like, oh, like my anamorphic lenses are just sitting. You just want to take those, like no charge. And I was like, oh, and like I don't know if you know what anamorphic lenses are. It's
I have no idea.
They use them on like Star Wars, Star Trek. Like there's these beautiful, beautiful lenses. I don't want to get too nerdy about them, but like going from like a spherical thing to spherical lenses like we're using today to anamorphic for the thing that we were shooting, it was like, $1,000 added to like our itemized budget, but he just gave it to us for free because I had that power team in place. And the final product was insanely impacted by that, like one little small connection. And there's so many other stories I have where that happens. I didn't even realize that was a power team. So it's just like reflect on what you already have in place and see how you can manipulate it more in a positive manner to get more out of it.
Yeah.
And reciprocate too, obviously.
And the term power team is like, you could also say like strategic partner.
Yeah.
Or, like there's lots of other ways to phrase it. But yeah, it's essentially just a win-win relationship where a company's supplying you with what you need and they're getting what they want and you get what you want. And
Another example I have is like when I just came off that short film and we rented all of the gear, lighting, grip, and camera supplies from William F. White's down on Islington. And like I have a bunch of buddies, like half the people who worked on the film worked there. So basically we needed to provide a COI, certificate of insurance, up to like, I think $2.5 million, which for a short format is actually not that expensive. So they gave us all the gear for free. So we bought I think it was like $1,500 in insurance, and that itemized, I think it would have been like 65 grand for everything for the 2 weeks. And it was $1,500. Like, how it's like, that's insane. And to have that power team in place to go for it's like thinking of other projects you can manipulate that for and transition and use it for something else. It just explodes. It gives you way more inspiration to work in the future too.
Totally. And like, this is the simplest thing that most people don't even think of. Just pick up the phone and give someone a call. Like everybody's online. Mm-hmm. Like a great example, like I was talking to a band recently and they were struggling to tour. And, and I have like a Rolodex of it's not a Rolodex.
Boomer.
It's a binder of contacts and promoters and industry people in different sectors in different cities, North America, Europe, Australia. And they're just people. Mm-hmm. It's on the internet. It's not like it's some hidden
CIA document.
Yeah, it's not. It's on the internet. It's open for everybody. Just pick up the phone and call them. Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Good. Who are you? I'm so-and-so. This is what I'm doing. Okay, what do you want? You start a relationship and people, it's so refreshing to not get an email and just pick up the phone and just call somebody. Mm-hmm. If you want to work with a promoter that's going to get you on festivals and tours that other bands that you like are getting on, call them. Just
make an impression.
Make an impression.
Yeah.
Just get in there.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work right away, don't stop.
Yeah.
Like, keep going. Like there's this story of a graphic designer. It's not my story. I just heard this recently. And it was like this graphic designer's like trying to get into Starbucks, right? It's like the holy grail of contracts. I'm going to design something for Starbucks. And it took her 2 years. She called every week for 2 years. Finally, they're like, okay, we'll give you the contract.
Wow.
And she got it, But if she just given up,
that's first
at 6 months, okay, I'm calling them every week. It's 6 months, I'm done. No, 2 years later, it took 2 years. But like her whole business changed as soon as she landed that contract.
Oh yeah, and then it skyrocketed.
And then she got other contracts, and then it just changes.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes, and you've got to have that business sense about you proportionally to the art, because if not, you're not going to make those little moves every week that compound over time. Totally. That all of a sudden you're like, you're touring with a big promoter. It's getting you on shows. It's getting you in front of audiences. That's getting you leverage opportunities that start to like compound the results you get.
100%. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, it just comes to the same thing. It takes a village to do anything.
100%.
And if you don't have a village, then like you're screwed. Like,
yeah, you're screwed.
It's easy as that.
You can't do it all yourself. Don't even try. No. It's like, it's really just going to piss you off.
Yeah. Cause at the end of the day, if you're doing anything and it's like any more tasks you have to take on, it's just going to drain your inspiration. And then if you have a different output into a project because you're wearing too many caps, then that's just hurting your product. And then you have a less marketable product, and then your power team is going to hurt from that, and everything's going to trickle down instead of trickle up, you know, like it's,
I know for sure.
It's a frugal thing.
People just get really scared of like giving money away. Like when because they don't understand how it can benefit them, or they don't have that really strong relationship between like how the money they're parting with is going to get them more money. Like the return on their investment is not clear, you know, but it's so important to get clear on all that stuff. You know, if you hire a promoter or you hire someone if you hire a producer, don't just, I hate seeing all these bedroom producers, right? And people hire these bedroom producers. Like if you work with a producer, work with someone who has leverage.
Yeah.
Work with someone who has contacts you want. So when you pay the guy to make the track, you're also paying to get an in so you can get through to the people that you really want to be working with.
And I have a good story about that. So it stems back from this 2-day shoot I did. And I was talking to this dude, Rob Fitzgerald. He's a country artist. And he was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, I was down in Nashville recording my new album. But I was like, why are you going to Nashville to record your album? And he's like, well, listen to this. He's like, the producers here in Canada are great, but they just don't have that Nashville sound. If you know country, Nashville is the place. And he's basically like, if my song somehow gets, like, my radio trackers are talented, they're getting my song in between, like, you know, the Morgan Wallen, Laney Will, like whoever, you know, the big names. And if you have a song that's going in between two of the great country artists of our time, and it doesn't sound the same in terms of like the actual quality, regardless of the content of the song, now they're going to change the radio station. They're going to click next in the shuffle on Spotify or whatever. And it made so much sense to fork up the money to actually spend for that time going down to, you know, and it can transcend it. It's transferable, whatever. But if you put in that time and effort to get the sound of what you want, it's just going to make you more marketable. And then, like, he has a power team down in Nashville now, and now he's set up with the radios, and it's just like, I can look at him in the story, and he's just beaming, and I'm like, oh yeah, this dude's going places. It's just exciting to hear, you know?
There are guys that have power teams in cities and countries right across the world.
Different continents. Yeah.
There are bands that have a set number of contacts. Like, if I go to Europe, I'm going to call so-and-so for the bus rentals. I'm going to call so-and-so for the hotel discounts. I'm going to call so-and-so for this. I have a catering company that, they're going to help with the food. Like, all those logistical things get taken care of when you have somebody who already has a business that's already doing all that crap for other acts or whatever.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's all set up. It's all done. Yeah. And you just give them a call and say, yeah, this is when we're doing it. Perfect. Here's the price. Perfect. It's all relative to ticket sales and how many people at the shows, and you're running a business, so you're selling a service, you know, a product and a service at a show. There's a number of customers in the audience. You know, there should be revenue generated that can justify paying all the power teams, and you guys make money at the end. If you're not making money, it's a hobby. It's not a business, right? Yeah,
and that's a hard transition. I think where some people have to think, like, does this have legs? If it has legs, you got to start running at some point, and if you can't get to that point, then, you know, figure it out.
Everything has legs if you can, like, there is terrible music at the highest level, making a fortune every year. And there is great music somewhere in a basement that nobody knows about.
Let's just break it down one more time. Let's give a rough summary of what people should look for, how to start, and how to go about finding their power team.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I think the first thing is you've already got power teams set up. You just don't even know you do. So first thing is, like, identify where you've got strategic people in place to help you with different things in your life and your business. And then find more ways to delegate more of the roles of things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't have to hire somebody full time. It's not a 40-hour week, you know, big salary commitment. It's their contract work. It's by a per project basis. That's how most of the industry works at this point. And that's okay. Pay people proportionally to what they contribute to the project. And, you know, you can always have great relationships with people. Find good quality people.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. If you're going to pay a producer to mix something or do something for you, get a producer who's got a connection to someone that you want to work with in the future, or someone that might be helpful in another aspect of your business, or a promoter that might help you get on tour, or, you know, someone who's, you know, it doesn't matter. Be resourceful is really
and like find the opportunities within each project, because I think some people miss the opportunities and see, like, I mean, you might not have an immediate benefit from that opportunity, but if you can look 3 opportunities ahead from that one and see the benefit in the long term. I think that's what I'm doing right now. And it's all sort of starting to get up the step ladder. And if like you don't take those initial opportunities, you're going to stay in the same lane and not change.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to look steps ahead at like once you start developing your power team, you can start sort of looking like longer term goals that make more sense. And it's not unrealistic anymore when you can, if you're one call away from doing a tour somewhere else, you know what I mean? Like it's all in a bubble.
Yeah,
like
no,
you
totally.
just gotta create it.
And then the other thing is, if business isn't your thing and you want to just focus on art, delegate the management stuff. That's a role too. It's not a full-time commitment. It's not a lifetime commitment. You're not signing anything away other than, people go crazy about manager fees and stuff like that. You have to understand something. If you hire a CEO to run your business for you, which is essentially what you're doing, you want them to get filthy rich. You want to pay them a percentage of your business, because if they go and grind their butts off and they make the business huge, that's something that wasn't there before they were there.
Yeah.
You want to pay them. You want them to be happy.
Yeah.
And you want them to you want to incentivize people to go and do things for you and get a good result because it's going to help you.
And I think that comes back to what you're saying at the very beginning. It's that win-win relationship. If you can make your people win, they'll make you win. And like, there's no losers in that relationship.
Oh man, power team's the way to go.
Power team is the way to go. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. That was episode number 10, first milestone in the Creative Island journey. So this is pretty huge. Drop comments below. Go look at our blog. And we got a couple live events coming up soon. So just keep your eyes peeled. And thank you so much. Cheers.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. And if you'd like to be notified of more episodes, please be sure to follow the Creative Island podcast now.
Want access to exclusive content, our community newsletter, live events, and so much more? Visit creativeisland.online today to join the Creative Island community.
See you at the top.